Alrighty, everybody. Well, welcome to week 6 of the Rules of Golf. We have a special guest with us from the Minnesota PGA front office staff. Our friend Tom Polito, who is the tournament director, is going to go through rules of golf with all of you. We do have a couple poll questions tonight, so be sure you're paying attention and answering those as you can. And also, if you have any questions for us later or during the presentation, please feel free to use your question and answer prompt, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. So I'll let Tone take it from here.
All right, thanks, Kaylee. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to week 6 Rules of Golf, to the education series presented by Impact Golf. So I think it's going to be a good night. We're going to have a very comprehensive overview of the rules and kind of cover a lot of common things that you may encounter as a player, and just some good general tips to know for the rules. You know, obviously the rules are important to know as a player to not only protect yourself, but protect the field. And just in general, it's always important to know in some situations you may encounter kind of, you know, some things that you may want to do, and kind of know what your options are when you encounter some situations. Just a little quick introduction. So as Kaylee said, I'm the Minnesota PGA Tournament Director. I am also a PGA professional. So I've been with the section for now just over a year. And you know, it's been a great time, and kind of my rules experience started back in 2016 when I interned actually with the Minnesota PGA. So, you know, the rules, as I always tell a lot of people, it's an ever evolving thing that you continue to learn. You know, you're just not going to read the book and just understand everything. It's coming from reading the book. It's coming from, you know, being in situations and understanding situations. So, like I said, tonight we're going to go over a lot, and hopefully you can take out a few things from it. So what are we going to cover tonight? So we're going to start out with a couple key definitions, and we'll kind of talk about the importance of definitions in the rules. And then we're going to kick off next with some common procedures that you'll see. So obviously pace of play, searching for the ball, identifying the ball, dropping procedures, and your relief options. And then we're going to end off with some common rule situations that you'll have. We're going to play a virtual hole starting from the tee all the way to the putting green. And that's kind of when we'll go over some common things that you may see. So our first poll question tonight is a pretty easy one. I just want everybody to answer quick is, do you own a Rules of Golf book? So we'll give everybody, I don't think this one should take too long. Give everybody about 15, 20 seconds, and then we'll just kind of survey everybody on the call. Kaylee, do you want to share those results with everybody? Well, that's good to see. So 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 70% of everybody here, so 14, do own a Rules of Golf book. That's good. You know, a good follow-up question I always like to ask with that question is how many have dug into it and read a lot of it, but that's good to at least own it. You know, it's always, you know, if you ever have some time, just kind of start reading through it, and kind of the next, you know, thing we're going to talk about, the importance of what the first thing you should read is the definitions. So why are learning the definitions important? Well, there are over 70 defined terms, and these definitions form the foundation around which the rules are written. You know, they define things such as penalty areas, they define the boundaries of out of bounds, you know, they define what the course is, what classifies an abnormal ground condition or course, you know, so, you know, and all these things we're going to be talking about to kind of go over some common things, but really the knowledge of the definitions are essential to apply the rules correctly. So if anything you're going to read, start off with that, because, you know, from my experience, I'll tell you that I'm always still surprised how much you can learn from the definitions. You think you have to read the rule. Obviously the rules are very important, you know, each rule that they have, but you'll find a lot of the information you want in the definitions, and that's how you're going to know how to correctly apply the rule. So some key definitions that we'll go over. The first one is areas of the course. So there are 5 areas of the course, and the largest area is called the general area. So this covers all the areas of the course except the other 4. So when you're looking at that diagram on the right-hand side, they classify the general area as number 1. So basically it's everything else but the other areas that are numbered. So the other areas of the course are the teeing area, which is the teeing area is the hole being played. So what does that mean? So there's only, every time you're playing a hole, there's only one teeing area. So if you're playing hole number 3 and you're playing the blue tee boxes, that defined teeing area is the only one you'll have on that whole course. So if you decide, if you hit your drive and it ends up on number 5 tee box, that's not considered the teeing area. It's just considered the general area. And I should correct myself. I think I said number 1 was the general area, but that's the teeing area. So I apologize about that. And then you have all the penalty areas. So penalty areas are, we'll go over kind of the definitions there, but in the diagram, that's number 3. You have all bunkers, which are number 2, and then the putting green of the hole being played. So again, there's only one putting green per hole that you play. It's the putting green of the hole. You're playing hole number 3. The only putting green for that hole is number 3. All other greens that you may encounter that your ball may rest on or find are considered wrong greens. Natural forces are such things considered as wind, water, and gravity. So basically things out of kind of our control you can think of. Conditions affecting the stroke. This is a common thing you'll find when you're applying the rules, like, are you entitled to relief? The most common 3 is, does it affect your stance, swing, and lie a ball? In some instances, you will see line of play. You'll see that if you're on the putting green. And in some instances, if you're playing in an event that has, some tents set up and those tents aren't going to be easily removed, it can be considered a temporary movable obstruction. And you would get a line of play relief for that. But in most circumstances, you're going to see is, does it affect your stance, swing, or lie of the ball? Abnormal course conditions. These are things like animal holes, ground under repair, immovable obstructions, or temporary water, and we're going to touch on that a little bit later this evening. The general penalty, you'll see that term a lot in the rules, and what this means is a loss of hole in match play or 2 penalty strokes in stroke play. So anytime you see or hear general penalty, means 2 strokes in stroke play or a loss of hole in match play. Outside influence is any person except the player, his partner, or either of their caddies. It's any animal that is alive. A dead animal is actually considered a loose impediment. And then any natural or artificial object, but that is not a natural force. So that could be like another ball in motion. And lastly is the relief area, which is another thing we will discuss later today. Kind of looking at the diagram of the individual, her relief area is that kind of defined area of that half pie that you'll see. The colors don't actually mean anything, but it just kind of was a graphic that they had that kind of shows clearly what the relief area is. And this area is going to be either 1 or 2 club links, depending on the relief you're taking. And we'll go over later when it's going to be 1 or 2 club links. So what are some common procedures that you'll see when applying the rules? Pace of play, I think, is the biggest one in regards to, when you're playing in an event and even recreational golf, you always see that. So the rules now encourage a prompt pace of play. That means, basically play ready golf. Be ready when it's your turn. And they also encourage making a stroke in no more than 40 seconds. So, to save time, as if you're, next in line to play, kind of get ready and make sure that when it is your turn, you're ready to make that stroke in 40 seconds. And like I said, ready golf is encouraged even in match play. The only difference really in match play is make sure that there's a consensus between the 2 players, meaning that, if Kaylee and I are playing a match and, it's technically her turn, but then I play out of order. If she didn't agree to that, she can technically rescind my shot and I would have to replay it. In stroke play, there's no such thing, but just kind of be courteous to your other players and just kind of, mention, hey, if I'm ready to go, if you need a little bit more time. So that is totally allowed by the rules.
It is important that you are aware of how your pace of play impacts others. The 2019 rules encourage prompt pace of play by all players by recommending that you play promptly throughout the round. such as by preparing in advance for each stroke, moving at a good pace between strokes and between holes, and that you make a stroke in no more than 40 seconds.
The order of play when starting a hole depends on who has the honor. After that, it is based on which ball is farthest from the hole. In stroke play, however, there is no penalty for playing out of turn, and the 2019 rules both allow and encourage you to play ready golf, which means to play in a safe and responsible order that is most convenient and that saves time. These players agreed to play out of turn because the player farther from the hole had a difficult shot, and the other player was ready to play.
So that was a good kind of couple visual things, and I will have some videos throughout tonight to kind of keep everything a little bit easier. I always think it's good to have kind of, some visuals that help, explain everything. So the next thing is obviously searching for your ball. It's kind of important to make sure that is your ball. If you knew the old rules, you used to have a different amount of time to actually find your ball, but now currently you have 3 minutes to search for your ball. Before it used to be 5. But now it's currently 3. So the moment that you or your caddy begin searching for your ball, you have 3 minutes to find it. If you do not find it within that time, then the ball is considered lost, even if you find it after that time. While searching, there is no penalty for improving your conditions during a search, as long as you're fairly searching. So some examples of this, let's say you're in some tall grass and, you're fairly kind of, kicking around to see if you're trying to move some of the grass to see if your ball's in there, and you accidentally, kick it. That's totally fine as long as it was deemed fairly searching and you weren't doing it deliberately. The only thing you need to do is replace the ball as close to the original spot as possible. Even if you don't know that spot, just make your best judgment for that. So the next video is going to talk a little bit on that point.
Under the 2019 rules, there is no penalty if you accidentally move your ball while searching for it. If you do, replace your ball back on its original spot. If you don't know the original spot exactly, like this player, simply estimate it, including how the ball was lying under the grass, and replace the ball there.
So just something important to know for there. So now let's say you found your ball, so you found it in the rough. Say like you're, the individual kind of on the left, on the bottom picture, it's kind of hard to see if that's your ball or not. You are allowed to mark the spot of the ball and lift it to identify it. You no longer have to announce or involve others when lifting a ball for identifications. You don't have to announce it to your group as long as what you were doing was with good intention. The position of the ball, though, has to be marked before the ball is lifted or rotated. So that's probably the biggest thing to remember, is that if you're going to try to identify a ball, make sure you do mark its original spot. It's always the safest thing to do. And the ball cannot be cleaned any more than needed to identify it, unless if you're on the putting green when you're allowed to fully clean the ball. So on the picture kind of on the left, on the bottom, if you can't identify it from there, you may try to find where wherever you may have marked the ball as you're kind of marking, and you would try to clean a little bit of it just to make sure that it is yours. But let's say you don't mark your ball, or you lift it without good reason, or you clean it when you're not allowed to, you're going to receive a 1-stroke penalty. One thing to note there is, let's say, it's kind of a lapse in judgment that you say, I think this is mine, but you don't mark it. And let's say it's all full of mud. Well, you're going to receive a 1-stroke penalty for failing to mark the ball. But at that rate, because you already missed that first point, you might as well, take as much of advantage as possible and clean the ball, because regardless if you don't mark it and you clean it, you're still only going to receive 1 stroke. So kind of something to know of the knowledge of when the rules, while you're still receiving a stroke penalty, it may be to your benefit to, at that point, clean the ball if you come into that situation. So hopefully you don't come into that situation and you do mark the ball. But if you do, that's something to know that, it's just another thing that will help you, hopefully hit that next shot even better and take advantage of the unfortunate situation of getting the 1-stroke penalty. And this was something that came up in the end of January when I watched it. Obviously, I think the golfing world had a good conversation with this on Twitter. of Patrick Reed. So basically, Patrick Reed was in the lead, and he hit a shot out of a bunker, hit it a little left, and it kind of landed in some tall, rough grass, you know, kind of as shown in the photo. At the time, from the video and from what he was told, he was meant to believe, or he was just what was known at the time, that the ball didn't seem to bounce. It just seemed to basically hit the ground, and, you know, there was no movement up or down basically for it. So he was believed that, you know, the ball may be embedded. He did mark the position of the ball, and he proceeded to look if it was embedded. He called over a rules official to determine if it was embedded, and at the time he got relief for that. So the rules official said he did everything was right according to the rules, and the players said, you know, they didn't agree with the decision, but according to the rules, he did everything right. So kind of going through what we just went over, you know, did Patrick Reed follow the rules procedures? You know, you no longer have to announce or involve others when lifting a ball for identification. He did that. He marked the position of the ball before it was lifted. He did that, and he didn't clean it any more than needed to identify it. So from his actions and from what was known at the time, he didn't lift it without good reason. He didn't fail to mark it, and he didn't clean it more than he needed to. So he wasn't given a one-stroke penalty there, and he was allowed to take embedded raw relief. So in this situation, I say it's more of a player courtesy thing than anything. So, I mean, if you're in that situation, maybe you want to involve someone else, just so you're kind of being courteous to your competitors. But according to the rules, what he did was allowed. So now we come to some more poll questions, and these are more just to reinforce kind of a couple of big topics that we talked about. So the first one is, how many minutes do you have to find your golf ball from when you and or your caddy begin searching for it? 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes? And you lift your golf ball to identify it, but you do not mark its original spot, you will incur a one-stroke penalty, the general penalty, or no penalty. Kaylee, if you want to open up the poll questions, we'll give about 20 to 30 seconds.
All right, we got everybody in, so here are the results.
All righty, it's good to see. So it is, for number one, it is correct. You have 3 minutes to find your ball from when you begin searching for it. 5 minutes used to be the old allowed time, but it now is reduced to 3 minutes. So when you start that time, it is 3 minutes. And yes, you will incur the one-stroke penalty if you do not mark its original spot. So everybody did pretty good there. So appreciate it, Kelly, and we will continue. So the relief area, something you're going to see a lot in the rules. So it's measured from a reference point, and so you're going to see this reference point a lot, and we're going to cover it, kind of what each different reference point will be. But if you're looking at that photo, it's kind of, he has a T kind of in the middle of that half pie on the straight edge side of it. And usually this reference point is going to be determined kind of by the, the rules. So if you're playing from a, if your ball ends up in a penalty area and you're taking relief from that, the reference point is where it last crossed the penalty area. So we'll cover that in a little bit. But generally the relief area is 1 club length. So most times in the rules, you're going to see that it is 1 club length. The only times you're really going to see 2 club lengths are if you're taking lateral relief from penalty areas or an unplayable lie. So really that's an important thing to know. Always know that your relief area is 1 club length, unless if it's a lateral relief from penalty area, so a red penalty area, or you're taking an unplayable. And the club length that is used to determine the kind of margins of the relief area is the longest club in your bag, excluding your putter. So typically that's going to be everybody's driver. One important thing to kind of note is that everybody's relief area may be different. You know, for example, if I'm playing a 47-inch driver and Kaylee's playing a 44-inch driver, technically our relief areas are different because that's the longest club in our bag. So just a little kind of little extra thing to note there. And all drops now, including stroke and distance, back of the line, and embedded balls, relief are going to be in a relief area rather than a specific spot. In the old rules, they actually had a different procedure where you would replace it as close as possible. But for most procedures now, you're going to have a relief area compared to replacing it on a specific spot. And we'll cover a little more of that later.
When you drop in relief areas defined by 1 or 2 club lengths, in the 2019 rules, a club length will always mean the length of the longest club in your bag, except your putter. For most players, that club will be their driver, but not always. This player is using his driver to measure his 2 club length lateral relief area outside a red penalty area. This player's back on the line relief area is 1 club length on either side of and behind the point he has chosen on the line from the hole through where his ball was unplayable in the bunker. He is estimating the size of his relief area without measuring, then dropping well within 1 club length of that point. Finally, when a player measures with a shorter club, it is still the longest club in their bag, except the putter, that defines the relief area. Remember, when you drop, your ball must always land in, come to rest in, and be played from the relief area.
So the last part of that video was really important. When you're dropping a ball, make sure it lands in, rests in, and stays in the relief area throughout the whole process. So when dropping in a relief area, the player may use the original ball or another ball. So anytime you are getting relief, you have that option of replacing the ball. So let's say you're taking cart path relief and your ball got scuffed up, you have that option to replace the ball. So that is something very important to know. I saw a quick question here and I'll answer it. Is it required to place your club down during measuring, or can they eyeball the length? So it's not required to place the club lengths or the clubs down. And obviously it helps to determine it, but you can estimate the spot as long as it's within reason. So within the relief area, remember, you can replace the ball. You have to drop it from knee height. Obviously that was a new thing that happened a few years ago. And while it's dropping, the ball cannot touch the player or the equipment before it hits the ground. But it is okay to strike the player equipment after hitting the ground, as long as it's not deliberate. So if you drop it and it lands on the ground and it accidentally, knocks off your foot or whatever, as long as it wasn't deliberate, it's okay. I recommend just, trying to avoid that just for any things that may happen with other players if they see that. But then after dropping, the ball must come to rest inside the relief area. So, something you're going to see, and you see it on the tour, if after 2 dropping attempts, the ball doesn't stay in the relief area, the player is then going to place the ball on the spot where the ball dropped the second time, where it first touched the ground. It's kind of a confusing thing, but basically we have a video that's going to show that. But basically, wherever that ball dropped the second time and it first touched the ground, that's where you're going to place the ball if it doesn't stay within the relief area within 2 drops.
When dropping your ball under the new rules, the likelihood you will need only 1 drop will increase, while the randomness of your resulting lie will be preserved. The procedure is simple. Hold the ball at knee height, let go of it so it falls straight down, and make sure that it lands and comes to rest in the relief area. Don't throw, roll, or spin the ball, and don't let it hit you as it falls.
In the 2019 rules, when dropping and taking free relief or penalty relief, your ball must be dropped in the defined relief area, and it must come to rest in there too. Most of the time, with the knee-height dropping procedure, that will happen on your first drop. When it doesn't, drop a second time. If that drop doesn't stay within the relief area either, place a ball where your second drop first touched the ground.
When the 2019 rules let you lift your ball to take relief instead of playing it as it lies, you will be allowed to either use your original ball or substitute and use a different ball. In the 2019 rules, you are allowed to substitute a ball when taking free relief, as well as when taking penalty relief. This player is substituting a ball when taking free relief from a cart path.
Alrighty. So relief options. This is something you'll see definitely in the rules of kind of determining where your relief area is going to be. So the first one is stroke and distance. The definition of this being you lose the benefit of any gain of distance towards a hole. So basically this is where you go back to where you last, where your previous stroke was made. So a player is going to drop in a 1 club length relief area based on a reference point where the previous stroke was made. So that reference point is where your last shot was. So if you made a divot, that's kind of where your reference point will be. You'll have your tee down there, and then you'll have 1 club length to the sides of that, kind of making that half pie shape that you see, just as long as it's no nearer the hole. Back on the line, the player is going to drop, or the player drops in a 1 club length relief area, and the reference point is going straight back from the hole through the estimated point where the ball, some examples, either last across the penalty area or rests on the course. So if you're taking, penalty relief, or you take penalty relief from a yellow penalty area, you find that spot where the ball lasts across that. You take that point, you find where the flag is, you make a straight line from those two, and you go all the way back as possible, and you could drop anywhere on that line, and your reference point is where you determine to drop. And lateral relief is the player drops in a 2 club length relief area. So this is one of those instances where you get 2 club lengths based on a reference point where the ball either lasts across the penalty area for a red penalty area or rests on the course, meaning that's for an unplayable, which we will discuss on in a little bit. So we got another poll question here. So a player's ball is dropped outside the relief area but bounces back and now rests in the relief area. Is the player's ball in play? A, yes, the player's ball rests in the relief area. No, the ball must be dropped in and rest in the relief area. No, the ball must be dropped in the relief area. However, it does not matter if it rests in the relief area after being dropped correctly. Kaylee, if you want to pull that up, I'll give everybody about 20 seconds, and we will look at the results.
All right, it's been about 30 seconds, so we'll stop the poll. And here are the results.
Awesome. Yeah, so for everyone said B, that is the correct answer. So your ball has to drop in the relief area and rest and stay within the relief area and rest there. So if you drop the ball outside the relief area and it bounces back in, that's technically an incorrect drop. So in that instance, you would get a 1-stroke penalty. If the drop the ball correctly, but it bounces outside the relief area and you play from there, you're not playing from a wrong place. So that's a 2-stroke penalty. So just make sure it drops in and rests in the relief area. So we got another poll. So what happens if someone forgets to drop in the right area, plays from the wrong, it's in maybe wrong place. So yeah, we covered that. So if it rolls outside the relief area, you're now playing in a wrong place. So that would be a 2-stroke penalty. So thank you, Kaylee. Hopefully that clears that up. So appreciate everybody's participation. So we'll keep on going. So next on the tee. So now we're going to kind of cover a playing through a course or playing through a hole and kind of covering some common situations that you will encounter. So first starting on the teeing area. So the teeing area, let's define the teeing area. So there is only one area or one teeing area per hole, kind of as you mentioned. If you're playing hole 3 and you're playing the, blue tees, that's the only teeing area I have on the course. If there's an, say 2 age divisions, and the younger kids are playing the white tee boxes, that's their teeing area. But to you, if you're playing the blues, that's just considered the general area. It'd be treated no different than if you hit a 300-yard drive in the fairway. So the teeing area is going to be defined. It's 2 club lengths deep, measured using your longest club that isn't a putter. It's from the outer edges of the tee boxes or tee markers. So if you kind of look at the diagram, it is the outer edges, and your ball is in the teeing area when any part of it is touching or is above the defined teeing area. Above defined teeing areas, if you're teeing the ball is going to be above it. So that's kind of important to know. A lot of people I see, they tee as close as possible to the front edge of the tee markers, but maybe you want to kind of get back. You do have 2 club lengths behind you to find some maybe grass if you're playing a par 3 that players haven't hit from. So just important to know that. And then if you end up in any other teeing area, if you're playing one hole and you end up on the other holes or any other tee boxes in front of you or even behind you, that's just considered the general area. You play it no different than if you're anywhere else on the course. So this is kind of more of a fun question. I remember when I was young, I didn't know this rule, and I think it's a lot of people kind of make a joke of it on social media and just kind of when you're playing in general. So first one is, have you knocked your golf ball accidentally off a tee while in the teeing area? And if so, what is the ruling? We didn't cover it, but I just wanted to see what everybody's kind of thoughts were on it. So if you just take a couple seconds and answer those, we'll cover that.
All righty, we got everybody in, so I'll go ahead and share these results.
Yes. All right. Well, I think a lot of people have that experience. And if so, what is the ruling? That the correct answer is no penalty, and we will cover that on the next page. I remember in an old high school match, a long time ago, that we had a player accidentally knock it off the tee, and everybody was confused and have no idea what to do. You see it a lot. Oh, that's one stroke. But we'll cover that in the next slide and cover that ruling. Appreciate everybody's feedback there and kind of response. So when you're playing a ball from the teeing area, so the ball has to be in the teeing area as we discussed, but you don't have to stand within the teeing area. So as long as any part of the ball is in the teeing area, you can be out of it if you want to tee it on the far left side or the far right side, and you're standing outside of it, that's totally fine. And then anytime your ball is in the teeing area, there's no penalty for accidentally or deliberately moving it. So if you're waggling your club, making a practice swing, and you accidentally hit it, that's totally fine. There is no penalty. Just pick it up and move it back into the teeing area and re-tee it. Deliberately moving it means basically, if you tee your ball on the left side and you decide, oh, you know what, I'm going to play it from the left side, you can move it. So the ball is not in play on that hole while it's in the teeing area until you make a intended stroke at it. And after that point, then the ball is in play. So you got kind of give a few more kind of benefits there. The picture on the left is of Zach Johnson, the 2019 Masters. He was on hole 13, I believe, at Augusta, and he was making a few practice swings and he accidentally hit his tee. And as you see in that last photo, the ball ended up a few yards in front of him, and he was kind of, like laughing about it, but that's totally fine. He wasn't making an intended stroke at it. So he just proceeded to pick it up and re-tee the ball. Another thing I'll kind of mention here is that when you're in the teeing area, you always have that benefit of teeing the ball. So basically if, I'll say this example. I actually had it with my dad a few years ago. I was playing around and he had a shot probably 50 yards in front of him, hit a tree and bounced all the way back. and he was able to. It landed in the team area we were playing from. He's able to re-tee the ball even after he made one stroke already at it. So that's always a benefit you have if the ball comes back into the team area, or even if you make an intended stroke and you duff the ball, as long as it stays in the team area, you can re-tee it. So playing through, obviously, there's a lot of things that can happen while your ball is in the air. You know, I mean, you can accidentally deflect off something. There's a lot of places it can end up. So we're going to cover a few things of what could happen to your ball while it's tumbling to where it will eventually end up. So a ball in motion which is accidentally deflected. So there's no penalty for accidental deflections. The only exception really to this is that in stroke play, the player is going to receive the general penalty if a player's playing from a putting green and strikes another ball at rest on the putting green. In that instance, the player is going to receive the general penalty. So just make sure that, you know, when you're playing, make sure all the balls are marked and you're not putting from that when a ball is on rest at the putting green. In most circumstances, you're going to play the ball at the lies or as it lies. The only exceptions there are really if your ball ends up, you know, you'll see it on TV, it ends up in a trash can, ends up in a purse, lands on a towel. Obviously, you can get relief from that and you won't have to play it as a lies. But in most circumstances, you're going to play it as a lies. And if you accidentally strike the ball more than once, there is no penalty. You're just going to count the one stroke. This used to be a penalty stroke. But now, you know, basically they kind of came to the conclusion that in most circumstances, if you're chipping the ball and you accidentally double hit it, most of the times it's not going to benefit the player. So they're just going to count it as one stroke. You know, that's kind of an example. And we got a question here, see if we can answer that. If you hit a tee shot and it comes back onto the teeing area, you say you could tee it up again. Do you tee it up where it lies or back where you started? So when it comes back into the teeing area, for example, you have the benefit of, you know, basically you could pick up the ball, re-tee it on the left side, tee it up on the right side. You don't have to re-tee it from where it last came. So, you know, that's the benefit of being in the designated teeing area of the hole you're playing. If it comes back, you know, let's say you go 2 club lengths back, you duff the ball and it goes 1 yard, and it stays in that teeing area, you can pick it up, you can move it back to where you were, you can move it to the left side, move it to the right side. So you always have that option to pick it up and kind of put it back or put it where you would like, as long as it's within that defined teeing area. Last thing I'll note on this is that, you know, as an, you know, examples kind of the picture shows, you know, your ball can deflect off of lots of things. It can deflect off trees, it can deflect off a cart, it can deflect off your bag. In most circumstances, you know, there's no penalty for that, and you just play the ball as it lies and you move on. So this next video, I think is a common or a pretty famous example of accidental deflection. And there is going to be a poll question after this, so pay attention. It's a quick video, and we will watch it now.
Ow! Oh, my arm! It's broken! Good Lord, what has this buffoon done now? Let's have a look at that.
So that is from the movie Caddyshack, if you don't know. And so let's answer the poll question for this. So in the video, Alistair Spick's golf ball deflected off the ball washer, hit his arm, and landed back in the teeing area. Is Sir Spick assessed a penalty stroke for the accidental deflections? If so, what? 1 stroke, the general penalty, or no penalty? And can Sir Spick re-tee his ball? Kaylee, if you want to put up the poll question there, and we will answer that once everybody has a chance to put in their response.
Alrighty, we had about 30 seconds gone by. So here are the results for that one.
Alrighty. So for the first one, as we said, from the video, it seemed to be all accidental deflections. I don't think he deliberately put the ball washer there to give him any benefit. And then it, came back, accidentally hit his arm. So with the new rules, there is no penalty for that. So there's no penalty for it hitting him. If it would have hit his caddy, would have hit his equipment, there is no penalty, and there's no penalty for it hitting anything else. So the correct answer for 1 is C. And as we've been talking about for a little bit, he can re-tee his ball. So his ball ended up in the teeing area, and kind of as the last question was asked, he can re-tee it where it was, or he can move it 2 club lengths back, within the teeing area, move to the left, to the right. So he has that benefit. So thanks everybody for that response. So let's say you hit a perfect drive off the tee and you're now in the general area. So what are some common situations you may encounter there? First, defining the general area. So as we kind of mentioned earlier, it's all the areas of the course except, the teeing area of the hole, the penalty areas, the bunkers, the putting green of the hole being played. Then the general area encompasses all teeing locations on the course other than the one teeing area of the hole you're playing, and all wrong greens. So, just kind of a general overview of kind of everything we've been talking about, what encompasses the general area. It's the biggest thing, biggest area of the course that you're going to encounter. So some abnormal course conditions. Let's first kind of define when relief is allowed. So abnormal course conditions could obviously be cart path relief, which we're going to talk about on the slide, but it can also be ground under repair. It could be, it could be temporary water. So when is relief allowed? So it's allowed when the player's ball it touches or is in or on an abnormal course condition, so kind of the lie of the ball, or the abnormal course condition physically interferes with the player's area of intended stance or swing. So the abnormal course condition affects the player's lie, the player's stance, or the swing. The player is entitled to relief. The only area on the course where the player is not entitled to relief is in a penalty area. So if you're in a penalty area, probably the rules official is going to tell you if you want relief from that, you got relief options to get out of the penalty area. So you don't get relief from that. So for the situation we're going to talk about on this slide, this is probably one of the most common situations you'll see while running a tournament or playing in an event, is cart path relief. So for a ball in the general area, which the cart path will most likely be in, free relief is allowed. So your reference point is going to be the nearest point of complete relief in the general area. It's going to be 1 club length, and it has to be in the general area, and it cannot be near the hole. So if you're looking at the diagram for B1, this is assuming a right-handed player. So the nearest point of complete relief is on the left side. The reference point is kind of that dot, and then the 1 club length relief area is shown. For B2, the nearest point is P2. That's where the reference point is for that. So basically, you got to see if I go to the left or go to the right, which is the least amount my ball is going to travel. That's how you're going to determine the nearest point of complete relief. And complete relief is important because it can, it has to be your lie, it has to be your stance and your swing. You cannot have it, where one of those is not fully relieved from the situation. And something important to note is that before you decide to take cart path relief, and I've encountered this situation as a rules official, make sure you know where your nearest point of complete relief is. In this instance, the player's stance is affected by the cart path. But, as we said, his nearest point of complete relief is, where the ball travels the least. And how this course is marked, kind of the tall wispy grass it's considered the general area. It's not a penalty area. So his nearest point of complete relief is actually dropping the ball in the wispy grass. So in this instance, it is in the player's benefit to actually play the ball as it lies and have his stance be on the cart path. A lot of people saying, oh, well, that's a bad lie on the right, I'm going to get it on the left, and in the rules, the only thing I can think of, unless if they had it marked where that was all red, then he could go on the other side. But because it is considered the general area, that is his nearest point of complete relief. So make sure you know where that point is, because if you decided to lift your ball and then a rules official said, hey, that's where your nearest point of complete relief is, and you don't want to play it from there, well, you encounter now a 1-stroke penalty for lifting your ball, as we talked about earlier. So you'll replace it on the spot, but now you took a 1-stroke penalty for basically nothing when you could have just played it as it lies. So before you ever pick up your ball, just make sure you know where you're going to be taking relief, because sometimes it may not be your best benefit to do so. If you're talking about, if there's a tree, or, in this instance, there's tall grass. So embedded ball, it's another common one that you'll see. So the definition, so it's when a player's ball is in its own pitch mark made as a result of the player's previous stroke, and where part of the ball is below the level of ground. So probably the important thing there is it's a result of the player's previous stroke. So if I'm playing a shot, let's say I make a pitch mark and my ball doesn't land in it, but it continues to roll, and it's fine, I play it. And then the group behind me, Kaylee, plays a shot, and her ball rolls into my pitch mark. If it's known that her ball was rolling, it's most likely did not make kind of an indent or did not break the surface of the ground, she's not entitled to embedded ball relief because it wasn't as a result of her previous stroke. So it has to be known, with certainty with the knowledge you have at the time that your ball most likely just, plugged into the ground and it kind of broke the ground, and that's why your ball is embedded. But you only get embedded ball relief if it's in the general area. So your ball has to be within the general area to meet that requirement and to get relief from it. Your ball is not going to be embedded if it was pushed into the ground by someone stepping on it. If the ball was driven into the ground without becoming airborne, if you just, topped it and just drove it further into the ground, that's not considered an embedded ball. And the ball was dropped and taking relief and it created an indent. Those are not considered an embedded ball. So it's only as a result of your previous stroke where the ball actually broke the ground. So assuming your ball and kind of meets those requirements, you are allowed free relief for an embedded ball. Your reference point is going to be the spot behind the ball. So on that diagram, you're going to get relief directly behind the ball, and then you get 1 club length from there as long as it's no nearer the hole and it stays in the general area. So, kind of that's why I said it's always important when you're reading the rules, know where that reference point is. So in the instance of an embedded ball, you would place that tee right behind the ball, go to the left and the right, no near the hole, and you would have that relief area where you can drop the ball and get free relief from or for. So ball at rest moved by the player in the general area. So if the player lifts or deliberately touches his or her ball at rest or causes it to move in the general area, the ball has to be replaced on its original spot. And the player is going to get a 1-stroke penalty. So when is this going to happen? I've seen it a few times on TV and had a couple events I played with it happening. Let's say you're in the fairway and you're making a practice swing and you take a big divot and the divot flies and hits the ball and moves it. Well, you moved a ball at rest in the general area, and that is a penalty of 1 stroke. Or let's say you're making a practice swing next to the ball and you accidentally tap it, or you move it 5 yards, that is a penalty of 1 stroke as well. So just make sure that happens. You replace the ball on its original spot. If the ball is not replaced on its original spot, you're then going to be playing from a wrong place, and now you're going to be receiving the general penalty, so a 2-stroke penalty. So make sure that if that does happen, you get it back on its original spot so you don't encounter the wrong place penalty of 2. Unplayable ball in the general area. You are allowed to declare your ball unplayable at any time except in a penalty area. You have 3 options. Under a penalty of 1 stroke, you can take stroke and distance relief. So in the diagram, that's option 1, meaning you go back to where you last played and you get 1 club length relief area from there. You can do back on the line relief. So your reference is going to be the golf ball where it lies in the bushes. You're going to take a straight line from your ball to the hole and then draw a line all the way back, and you will find a reference point on that line that you'd like to play from. So in that instance, number 2, that's the reference point is there, and they get that 1 club length. Or you can take lateral relief. So your reference point is actually the location of the original ball. So you get 2 club lengths to the left and to the right and near the hole, and you can drop anywhere in that shaded area. And it's always important to know that you can take an unplayable at any time. You know, I mean, it's something that may come into play, that it may be to your benefit. If you have a shot that it's a hero shot, or you don't know if you've never practiced it before, sometimes you may want to take that unplayable, because if you end up whiffing the ball and then you decide not to play it, then you've already wasted 2. So you might as well consider that as an option in certain instances you may encounter. So we are going to have another poll question. So a player's ball is embedded in its own pitch mark in the general area, but is in an area cut greater than fairway height. So for example, the rough. Is the player allowed to take relief? 1, or A, yes, but because it is in the rough, it will be a penalty of 1 stroke. B, yes, the penalty is given, or the player is given free relief. And C, no, the ball must be played as it lies. Kaylee, if you want to put up the question, and we'll give everybody 20 or 30 seconds to answer.
All right, we got everybody in, and here are your results.
Perfect. So the correct answer is B. Yes, the player is given free relief. I will note that in the rules, as they are written, the general area does not define anything such as height of grass. So, fairway is considered the same thing as we saw in that one photo a few slides ago, that wispy grass. That's considered the general area. There are instances, and I will say from the Minnesota PGA and the Minnesota Golf Association, we don't have this in our notice to competitors. You may see in the competition that, they say it can only be in the in fairway height grass, that you can only get embedded ball relief. So look for that if you're playing in another event, but in most instances, most people don't play that. Even on the PGA Tour, like I said, there's, like I showed earlier with Patrick Reed, he was getting embedded ball relief, free embedded ball relief in the rough. So the rules say the general area is, it's fairway, it's rough, as we kind of say it in, our terms of talking about the grass height, and you are entitled to free relief in that instance. All right, so let's say, kind of going back off the tee, you're like me and can't hit their driver 100% straight all the time, and you end up in the penalty area. What are some common situations you may encounter? So penalty areas, kind of just going over in general, they were previously called hazards. You're still going to hear that term a lot by a lot of people, but they're all called penalty areas now, and we're all getting used to saying that. They're not limited now to areas that just contain water. So it contain, and the committee can deem this wooded area a penalty area as long as it's correctly marked. While in a penalty area, you are allowed to remove loose impediments. You can touch the ground and the water in the penalty area, and you can ground your club in the penalty area. So you can, ground your club right behind it, make your stroke. You can take practice swings. So you are totally fine. There's no penalty for any of that. There are 2 penalty areas that you have, yellow and red. Yellow areas have 2 relief options, stroke and distance, meaning going back to where you previously made your last stroke, and back on the line relief, as we've discussed tonight. And in red areas, you have 3 options. You have stroke and distance back of the line, and then your third option is the lateral option. So you have 2 club lengths from where your ball last crossed the penalty area. You get those 2 club lengths. So yellow, you get 2. Red penalty areas, you get 3 options.
If you find your ball in a penalty area and want to play it from there, the same rules apply as when playing a ball from the fairway or the rough. So before making a stroke, you are allowed to move loose impediments, make practice swings that touch the ground or any water inside the penalty area, and ground your club near your ball. When taking relief from a penalty area for one penalty stroke, one of your relief options in the 2019 rules is going back on the line. Follow these steps. Estimate the point on the edge of the penalty area where your ball last crossed as it went in. Imagine a straight line running from the hole through that estimated point and extending behind the penalty area. Go back as far as you like and identify a spot on that line. Measure or estimate a 1 club length wide relief area on either side of and behind that spot. In the 2019 rules, a club length is always the longest club in your bag except your putter. Then drop a ball in the relief area. Your dropped ball must land in and be played from the relief area.
In the 2019 rules, when you take lateral relief from a red penalty area under a one-stroke penalty, estimate the point on the edge of the penalty area where your ball last crossed as it went in. Starting at that point, measure or estimate your 2 club lengths relief area outside the penalty area that is not nearer the hole. In the 2019 rules, club lengths are the length of the longest club in your bag, except your putter, and then drop a ball in that area. Your drop ball must land in and come to rest in the relief area.
All right, so we got another poll question here. So a player finds her ball embedded. The player's stance is outside of the penalty area, while a small portion of the ball is touching the red penalty area line. The player is entitled to A, free relief for an embedded ball, B, free relief for an embedded ball if she stays within the penalty area, or C, no relief for an embedded ball. Kelly, if you want to put that up and give everybody 20, 30 seconds.
All right, everybody's in. This one was a little close.
Ooh, all right, all right. So kind of a mix of everything. So I didn't talk too much about it, but I just kind of wanted to see, and I think it's just a good discussion to have about kind of the what defines the penalty area. So when you see that red line is considered the penalty area. So the edge of it is the course edge. So the side closer to the course is the outer edge of the penalty area. So your ball is considered to be in the penalty area when any part of it is touching it. So even if it's one dimple, if one dimple, you know, is touching the red penalty area line, your ball is considered to be in the red penalty area. So now since that ball lies there, that's what you're restricted to. So as we mentioned before with embedded balls, the one area you cannot get embedded ball relief is a penalty area, because a money rules official will tell you you have options to get out of it if you like. I actually did have an instance with this a few years ago. And so, you know, the player elected to play it as it lies. So the correct answer for this is no relief for an embedded ball, because embedded ball relief will not apply for this situation. This player can, you know, take relief under her 3 options she has under a red penalty area line. So hopefully that clears that up. All right, so we're now getting closer to the green. We're now going to be in the bunker. So bunkers, just kind of covering the definition of it. So as kind of shown in the diagram on the right, the check marks obviously designate when the ball is in the bunker, and the X is when it's not. So walls and lips are not part of a bunker. In those instances, you know, if the wall, you know, is made out of soil, it's technically not in the bunker. It's actually considered part of the general area. So that's, you know, going to determine kind of your options you have there when playing the ball. Loose impediments can be removed in bunkers without penalty. But if the ball moves while moving a loose impediment, you're going to receive a 1-stroke penalty, and the ball must be replaced on its original spot. There are a couple of relaxed restrictions compared to what it's been before. So you are allowed to lean on your club to rest as long as you're not doing so to deliberately test the conditions. You are allowed to strike the sand in frustration or anger. Recommend not doing it, but if it happens, it is okay. But before you make the stroke, you cannot deliberately touch the sand with your hand, the club, a rake, or other objects to test the conditions. You also can't touch the sand with your club in the area directly in front of or behind the ball, unless if you're fairly searching for it. If you do any of that, you're going to receive the general penalty. So in most situations, you're going to see that you're not going to be touching the sand until the moment you decide to make a stroke at the ball. But it is okay if you walk into a bunker, you pick one club and you rest your other clubs in the sand. That is totally fine as long as you're not deliberately trying to test the conditions.
Under the 2019 rules, there is no penalty for moving loose impediments when your ball is in a bunker. However, some bunker restrictions continue to exist. For example, you are still not allowed to touch the sand with your club, behind or in front of your ball, when making a practice swing, or when making your backswing.
All right, so now we come to unplayable balls in the bunker. So we talked about unplayable balls in the general area, but now let's say your ball's in the bunker. So you are allowed in the bunker to deem your ball unplayable at any time. You have 4 options, similar to the options in the general area. You have stroke and distance, meaning you go back to your last played. So if it was you last played outside of the bunker, you can, go back there and play another shot. Back in the line relief, as long as it stays in the bunker. And there's a diagram on the next slide to we can show a diagram for that for a visual. And then lateral relief, as long as you stay within the bunker. Your lateral relief is going to be, again, the reference point is going to be where the ball lies, similar to when it was in the general area. So under penalty 1 stroke, you can take an unplayable ball relief as long as it stays within the bunker for back in the line and lateral. But there is a new option you do have. So let's say you don't want to go, you don't want to play in the bunker, but you don't want to go back to where you last were. You do have the option under a penalty of 2 strokes to take back in the line relief, but go outside the bunker. So the reference point is based on a point going straight back from the hole through where the ball lies, and then that line continues outside of the bunker. So you can take relief there, but it would be 2 strokes. So this is kind of a diagram to explain what we just covered. So your ball is kind of near the front of that bunker. So option 1 is stroke and distance under a penalty of 1 stroke. Option 2 is back on the line relief, staying within the bunker. Option 3 is the lateral relief, having 2 club lengths on both sides. And then that option 4 is that 4th option, taking back on the line relief, but for a penalty of 2 strokes instead of 1, you are allowed to get outside the bunker. So if you really don't like playing for bunkers and you don't want to go back to your last played, you do have an option to get out of it.
When you decide your ball in a bunker is unplayable, under the 2019 rules, you have an extra option that lets you drop back on the line outside the bunker for a penalty of 2 strokes. Imagine a straight line running from the hole through where your unplayable ball is. Identify a spot on that line as far behind the bunker as you like. Measure or estimate a 1 club length wide relief area on either side of and behind that spot. Then drop a ball in that area. Your dropped ball must land in and be played from the relief area.
All right, so another poll question. A player finds his ball embedded in its own pitch mark in the bunker. Is the player entitled to free relief for an embedded ball? Yes, the player will proceed under the embedded ball rule to determine relief. No, the embedded ball rule does not apply in this situation. No, the player will receive a 1-stroke penalty to take relief for an embedded ball in the bunker. Kaylee, if you want to put up the question and give everybody 20-30 seconds.
All right, everybody's in.
All right. So the majority said no, the player will receive a 1-stroke penalty to take relief for an embedded ball in the bunker. The next one was no, the embedded ball does not apply in this situation. And then the last one was yes, the player will proceed under the embedded ball rule to determine relief. So as we mentioned earlier, the embedded ball rule is only when you're in the general area. So this was kind of not so much a trick question, but just kind of, just kind of a taste of, how sometimes rules questions are written if you're ever taking the exam. So the correct answer is B, no, the embedded ball rule does not apply in this situation. Because, like I said, embedded ball relief is only allowed when you're in the general area. Number C would be correct if it said the player is going to achieve a 1-stroke penalty, because he's taking an unplayable relief, unplayable ball. So he's going to get relief because of unplayable. So as we said, you can take it a ball unplayable if it's a fried egg and you can't hit it. You can get a 1-stroke penalty there, but it's not classified as an embedded ball. So the correct answer is B. But good job everybody there. So hopefully that clears some things up there. So we finally have arrived on the putting green. Let's go over a couple things that may happen there. So putting green, one of the most common things you'll probably see is, you're on the putting green, you're making a practice stroke, and you accidentally, nick your ball and it moves a few inches. So as long as it wasn't it was accidental and it wasn't deliberate, there is no penalty for that. You replace the ball on its original spot or place a ball marker to mark the original spot. So there is no penalty. You just move it back to where it was previously. Ball moved by natural forces. Remember, as we talked about in the beginning, natural forces, wind, water, or gravity. So it determined. So based on this, it determines based on what has been happened previously. So in the option 1, so if the ball was already marked, lifted, and replaced, the ball has to be replaced on the original spot. So let's say you arrive to a green, you mark your ball, you lift it, you clean it, and then you place it back. The moment that you marked that ball and then lifted it, your ball owns that spot on the green. So if you replace your ball and it ends up rolling 50 yards away, as long as you marked and lifted the ball, you can go pick it up and put it back on that spot. But if you did not mark and lift your ball, then the ball has to be played from the new spot. So that's why you see a lot of times, on TV or, if you're in a tricky green, you're like, hey, run up there quick and, go mark it. Because if you don't, and the ball rolls in the water or whatever, the ball, you play it as it lies. So, that's why it's important, mark and lift your ball. And then your ball is going to own that spot regardless what happens after that.
Under the 2019 rules, if you accidentally move your ball or ball marker on the putting green, there is no penalty. For example, if you accidentally move your ball in making a practice swing or in preparing for your stroke, drop your ball marker on your ball and move it. Move your ball with your foot. Or cause your ball marker to move. There is no penalty, and you simply replace your ball or ball marker on its original spot.
After you mark, lift, and then replace your ball on the putting green, if it moves for any reason, including for your own accidental actions, or for some other reason such as wind. Always replace your ball back on its original spot. If you don't know the exact spot, estimate it as accurately as you can and replace the ball there.
Alrighty, so hopefully that clears things up. I do see we got a question about an OB line, and we are almost done with the putting green, and then we'll open it up to a couple questions. So I'll get to that very shortly. So putting green, some actions that you can take on the putting green. So you are allowed to touch the putting green to point out a line of play, which we'll have a video to kind of demonstrate that. And you are allowed to move sand and loose soil if your ball lies and it's on the putting green. Basically, you know, if there's a greenside bunker and there's a lot of sand splashing, if that sand's on the putting green, you are allowed to move it. You can repair almost any damage, you know, like spike marks or anything, except a few things, you know, so damage caused by normal maintenance practices, aeration holes, as an example, you know, things caused by irrigation, rain, or other natural forces, but you can repair hail damage is really the only thing there. Natural surface imperfections like diseased or uneven growth, and then natural wear of the hole. So those are the few things that you're not going to be able to repair, but you can repair most. In most certain circumstances, you're going to be able to repair, you know, spike marks and what have you on the green.
Under the 2019 rules, when you are assessing the line for your putt, there will be no penalty if your caddy or partner touches the putting green to point out where you should aim or how your putt will break. This includes touching the green with the flagstick.
The 2019 rules allow you to repair almost any damage on the putting green. In addition to ball marks and old hole plugs, you are allowed to repair spike marks and any other damage caused by shoes, repair animal damage, and repair damage caused by maintenance practices. The fixing and repairing of the putting green must be done promptly and must not improve your line of play beyond the repair of the damage.
Alrighty, and now we're getting to the end. So flagstick. So, you know, this is something that, you know, when the rules came out in 2019 was, I don't know, everybody had an opinion on this, but obviously last year, I think everybody got used to playing golf with the flagstick in. So I don't think it's an issue anymore. And I'm glad that this rule was already in effect so that it didn't really affect things too much. But you are allowed to leave the flagstick in the hole when playing from anywhere, and there is no penalty if your ball hits the flagstick left in the hole. If your ball comes to rest against the flagstick left in the hole, as long as some part of the ball is below the surface of the putting green, the ball is treated as being holed. So kind of in the picture on the right, you know, the flagstick looks like it's a little slanted, but the ball is clearly below the surface of the putting green. And the ball is now treated as being a hole. You don't have to go and move the flagstick for it to, you know, drop all the way down. You know, the ball is now considered hole. You can pick it up and move on to the next hole. So we're going to finish off.
Under the 2019 rules, there is no penalty for hitting the flagstick that is in the hole when you've played your stroke from off the putting green, or if you've played your stroke from on the green. So if you want to leave the flagstick in the hole, perhaps to save time or because you think it helps you, there is no penalty if your ball hits it. If your ball is not holed, play it as it lies.
All right, we see another question. I'll get to that at the end quickly. We have one final poll question for the night. It's a little longer than the other ones, but see what everybody can guess. So a player's ball is lying 3 on the putting green. So let's say it's a par 5, and you know you took 3 strokes, you're finally on the putting green, and was marked, lifted, and replaced. The ball proceeds to move due to the wind and rolls into the hole. The player's ball is A, hold. The player scored a 3 on the hole. B, not hold. The player must replace the ball in the last known spot it was marked. C, not hold. The player must replace the ball in the last known spot it was marked and will receive a 1-stroke penalty. Or D, hold. The player scored a 4 on the hole, counting 1 additional stroke. Kaylee, if you want to put it up, everybody 20, 30 seconds, and we will discuss.
Alrighty, I think we had almost everybody come in on this one.
Perfect. That's good to see. So the correct answer is B. The ball is not hold. The player has to replace it on the last known spot. It was marked. So remember, as we talked about, the moment that you mark your ball and then lift it, your ball owns that spot. So when you replace it, whatever happens to it after that, it doesn't matter. You know, in this instance, if the player had not marked and lifted it, and the ball then proceeded to go in the hole, then yes, the player scored a 3 on the hole. But because the player marked and lifted the ball and then replaced it, that ball owns that spot and the player has to play from there. So the correct answer for the last question was B. So we are now finally on to the next hole. We made it through, starting on the Ting Area and all the way through everything else. So I appreciate everybody's time tonight, and kind of hopefully you can take a few things away from this. I know Kaylee's recording this if you wanted to watch back anything and take some notes there. But the last thing I like to mention is that the Rules of Golf have a mobile app, and I saw someone said they have their rules book online, which is a very good way to have it in today's age. It's available in the Apple App Store, Google Play. Includes all the editions of the rules. There's the Player's Edition, which is kind of the most basic, and then there's the full rules, and then the official guide with interpretations. They have video libraries, so I highly recommend everybody going out downloading there. It's a good way to kind of get, you know, some knowledge into the rules and, you know, kind of start learning them. And, you know, if you're ever on the course and you don't know where to look, there's a search tool. You can kind of search some basics things and they kind of give you some options there. So I know we have a couple questions here, and I will go through them. So the first one I know I got was an OB line. So I think what it is when the ball is defined to be OB. So as we talked about, this is one that how I always think of this. So when your ball's OB, or when you're determining if it's OB or not, let's just say there is a white line, or, you know, you take a string, you know, if it's between two stakes, it's the outer edge of the stake that defines, you know, so the course edge, the closest edge to the course is what defines the edge. So if any part of the ball, you know, you kind of take that, you know, whatever, if it's on the line or the fish wire, if any part of the ball is touching the course, it's considered to be in play. It is not considered to be OB. So that's kind of the opposite of everything else. You know, as we talked about in a penalty area, if any part of the ball is touching the penalty area, then it's in the penalty area. But in OB, it's the reverse. If any part of the ball is in the course, it's considered to be in the course. But you cannot, you are not allowed to, like, you know, remove OB stakes if those come into play. Do you know if courses will require pool noodles or other items in the hole this year for youth and or regular tournaments? I think, you know, that's going to determine, you know, for regular play, that's going to determine, I think, on the course. For my events, for the section events, we are allowing players to remove flagsticks. You know, we have safety protocols in place that we have recommendations of not, you know, touching them with, you know, your hand, having a towel or using that. And we're going through kind of the event, you know, wiping them down and all that. But we're not going to have any pool noodles in that. So that's kind of, you know, I think for recreational play, that's kind of determined on the course. And then I know for our events, at least I can't speak on the juniors right now, but for the regular events that we host, we're not going to have any pool noodles in effect. So I see Carla commented, for juniors as of today, going with the same rules as last year. So if you play it in the junior tour there, it's the same rules as last year. Is there a concise rule sheet pamphlet for high school players to carry? You know, I can definitely look at some material that we can send out, you know, kind of to all the panelists here today or all the participants, and get something to you. I know there's some materials out there of, you know, common rule situations that you're going to encounter that the USGA's put out, so we can definitely share that with everybody who's on tonight. And if there's anything else I can kind of go through through my stuff and my files, I can definitely be willing to share with all of you. So do we have any other questions, Kaylee?
Not right now, but I think there's definitely resources available if you're wanting to look and learn more about the rules of golf. And I think especially at junior events, the on-siters are knowledgeable about the rules, but the best, like as each player is playing in our junior tour, the more that you know about the rules, the better. You know, it just helps our overall events for you guys to learn the game of golf and just to have a stellar event where people are knowledgeable about what's happening. We do send out some rule books and stuff. And so if you ever have any questions or concerns, you know, my name's Kaylee, and you can find my email on the Minnesota Junior Golf website, and I can help connect you with Tone if you would have anything specific. But please know you can always look at our website and on social medias for resources and, you know, any questions or concerns you may have.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I always think, you know, like we talked about in the beginning, knowing the rules is going to help protect you. It's going to help protect the field. And if you don't know, try to contact someone, you know, a rules official. If you're at a junior event, an on-siter, you know, all those on-siters, they have my information, they have Carla's information. We'll definitely get the right answer for the situation. So if there is no further questions, you know, we'll try to follow up with maybe some materials out there that the USGA may have, or anything that we will have here from the section to share with all of you. But if there are any further questions, always know you can reach out to me in my email on the section website if you have any questions. And I appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you took a few things away from tonight about the rules. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tone. Thanks everybody for joining. Hope we can see you next week for week 7 of the education series. We're going to be talking about playing college golf and what it takes to get to that next level. So have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
All right. See you, everybody.